It is January 21st, 2026, and Trump just gave quite the speech at Davos as he is making it clear to the world, and especially to Europe, that he sees Greenland as his. But while that fight is ongoing, the chaos that the US is waging around the world is sending a very important message to countries like Russia and China, countries that are preparing for the collapse of the US dollar, preparing for the decline of the US empire. And that's something that Washington is not happy to see, which makes them more and more desperate. And when they get desperate, they get dangerous. So, what should we be keeping an eye on when it comes to overall tensions? Well, we got into all of that and more with a special guest earlier. So, let's take a listen to that conversation now. Joining me now to discuss is retired U.S. Air Force Lieutenant Colonel and Professor Karen Kwiatkowski. Karen, thanks so much for taking the time to join me.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's great to have you back on the show. Now, I want to get your take on the latest here, as I know that Trump is in Davos. He just gave quite this speech to a meeting of the World Economic Forum. And it seems as though this has been turned into some sort of emergency summit for Europe, as Trump has pledged to seize total control of Greenland. And I'm curious, are you surprised by how much Trump has escalated this issue to the point where he's even claiming that there is no going back?
It's kind of par for the course on how Trump approaches negotiations. He goes in with massive, massive demands. This is what's going to happen, but here's the massive benefit. He has his whole story, and then he sees how they react. Okay, then he ridicules that, and they go back and forth. And then what I think will happen, I could be wrong here. What I think will happen is he'll pull away. He'll pull away from it, and he'll say, Greenland, it's so tough to get stuff. It's so expensive to really extract these minerals. It's a hard place to build. I don't know. Having second thoughts. And then certain of the beneficiaries in Europe will rush to be on his side. I think that he still has that much control and leverage over most of Europe, at least with the current leadership, because these are not populist leaders. These are very unpopular leaders. They are all in debt. They are going to lose their next election, and they want Trump to throw him a bone. And so I think what he'll do is, after all of this talk, he'll kind of say, I've been thinking about it. This is going to be really hard to really extract the wealth from Greenland. And my goodness, so expensive for us. Maybe we should rethink it. And then they'll come to him and they'll come to an agreement. And it'll be an agreement of, I think very likely, the kind of thing the State Department will try to put Greenland, or will put Greenland, under some voluntary agreement, quasi-voluntary, as we see with some of the islands in the Pacific. They're not tribes, they're not tribal nations, but they do have they're territories of the United States, and they because they were small populations and who knows what, agreed to this years and years ago. So I guess these territories can never become independent, right, in the Pacific, and that's what I think he wants for Greenland. But I think maybe they'll come under that. Anyway, I think he's going to get the deal that he wants. I don't think it's going to obviously entail any type of war with NATO, which would be a non-starter, because NATO can't fight a war. We've already seen that. And Trump, I have to agree, his condemnation of NATO, he's very ridiculing of it. And he does it out of meanness and rudeness. But in fact, NATO has proven itself to be a sinkhole of money that really is not operationally effective. And I say that as someone who actually worked with NATO for a short period of time when I was assigned to Aviano Air Base years and years ago. And anything that got done was the U.S. Anything that didn't get done was we didn't care to get done. That you could let NATO countries do that, but if it needed to be done, the U.S. did it. So NATO has always been our pawn. It's been an American pawn. So this is where Trump, he ridicules NATO. But NATO is exactly what we wanted NATO to be, which is our pawn. Okay, so it's kind of funny that he's right to ridicule them, but he's wrong to blame them, because we set it up this way. This is how we wanted it to be. Years ago when Germany decided to kick out a number of our troops, there was a huge popular movement to it. There was so many American troops there, and we did reduce them by 100,000. They leaked back in. It's not, that reduction was not sustained, but when that happened, the real true face of what NATO was revealed. It is, we use Europe as part of our forward battlefield in the Cold War and the post Cold War, because apparently the Cold War continues, right? We still have Russia as our enemy. Now it's a fake imperial Russia instead of the Soviet Union. But anyway, yeah, he'll cut the deal, and Europe will cut the deal, and it'll be sold as a win-win and a great achievement, and a lot of lives will be associated with it, and we can resolve the history later after Trump is gone. We can write what really happened. But yeah, he's going to get it, and Europe is going to give it to him. The Danes have and also he's got them between a rock and a hard place in terms of colonialism, right? Because Europe, as we know, even our own history, they've been great colonizers. This has been their tradition for 400 years, since the 60s, when they had to kind of unroll this, but they didn't want to do it. I mean, look at the Algerian independence. I mean, what a terrible, bloody thing that never had to happen, but it did, because France wasn't going to let go. Even in Africa today, we see the colonial Europeans holding on to whatever they have with no respect for the wishes of the indigenous. But now the wishes of the indigenous Greenlanders, or the Inuit, or whatever, the people that live there, are so important now to Europe. Come on, Trump's got them right by the short hairs on that, because they don't care about that. This will be resolved without conflict. Now, resolved in terms of who has authority and expansion of U.S. borders, expansion of U.S. territorial control. That's not a solution for anything. I don't know what Trump is thinking here. This golden dome, for what? First of these huge systems, even with Star Wars, with Ronald Reagan. And Reagan was not an engineer. Reagan was a guy who listened to a bunch of people, neocons particularly, who said, we got to do this Star Wars thing, and we got to fund the military. Trump is very much as ill-informed as Reagan was, being sold a line of BS of that how cost-effective and defensively effective that these things will be. No, this is a boondoggle. Okay, they'll be funded with printed U.S. dollars until it finally collapses and fails, and then we'll be left with a wasteland in the north, which most people won't care about because they already think it's a wasteland. I mean, again, it's a shame. We should be paying attention to our own country.
Oh, absolutely. And especially when you get a president who comes in and has campaigned so hard on America first, and then he gets in and it's like Israel first, military industrial complex first.
Yes,
You're looking at it
big
going,
big pharma first.
right. Yeah. You're like, where's the America in there? And one thing that this fight has really highlighted, and I know we already kind of knew this, right? We look at Europe, we look at the proxy war against Russia, and the fact is that all of these European countries are vassal states for the US. They are not standing up to the US. They're going along with whatever Washington says when it comes to support for Ukraine or continuing this war against Russia. Well, now that they're in this kind of feud with the US, it's showing even more just how weak Europe is, because I was reading earlier, even when it comes to the possibility of Europe deciding that they are going to take action regarding, say, the $10 trillion in US assets that are held in the EU, that would hurt Europe more than it would hurt the US. And that seems to be the case at every turn. So how do you view the position Europe is in when their weakness is really on center stage right now?
I think Trump may be hinting at it when he picks on Macron about, he's not long for this position. He's going to be, and it's true. And I think a lot of the major players in the EU, the main EU countries, are going to face real electoral reversals in the next elections, which are coming up in the next few years. During Trump's administration, I think they're all coming up. And so they'll be kicked out. And this helps kick them out. The loss of Greenland, the disrespect with which the U.S. treats all the European leaders. He's so condescending and rude, insulting to them at every time, lies to their faces. And they sit there, these leaders sit there and say, oh, yes, Mr. Trump, you saved us in World War II. What a bald-faced lie that is. And they know it because, see, at least the leaders in Europe do read history, and they are informed by, they're much smaller. Each individual country is much smaller. They know their history far better than most Americans know our own history, much less our history of intervening around the world, including in World War II. So, yeah, I think we're going to kick out a lot of these leaders, which is great. That's part of a populist reversal. I say great. It's great because it's change. Change will bring some opportunity, political change. But I don't know how truly great it is, because Europe has consumed its seed corn. Basically, they have they are not in a position to really rebuild. The U.S. isn't either, but we print our own money and we force everybody to use it. So we have an ability to use kind of fake fiat money that has really no legitimate value, and nobody trusts it anymore. However, we dominate the global bathtub of money, and it's mostly dollars, and we can utilize those dollars to rebuild it, to the extent that rebuilding is something Trump wants to do. He certainly told MAGA he was going to do that. I don't know. But Europe does not have, the euro is kind of a contrived currency. They aren't producing fundamental value that would back up either local national currencies or the euro. So they're going to have a big problem fixing themselves, even if they elect progressive, Germany first, France first, the UK first candidates. They're going to have a big problem resolving the crisis that they find themselves in. It's a demographic crisis. Their European populations are aging. It's a welfare state crisis. These are things that are unaffordable. And it's a productivity crisis, which relates to demographics. It also relates to education and all kinds of things that take a long time to fix. Military is way down there. Their militaries don't work either. Okay. But I don't know if those militaries will be a priority. It depends on which type of populist gets elected, right? You elect a Hitlerian populist who wants to expand and do the military. I mean, I could see Poland. Poland certainly is throwing tons of money at their military. Why are they doing that? Okay. I don't know. We don't know what the future holds for Europe, but it's not a unified Europe. We know that. And I think Trump is very much an opportunistic guy, as he always has been throughout his life. He seeks opportunities, and he doesn't really care about long-term relationships, except in a very small group. He has a small group of people. He's very clannish in a way. I noticed he mentioned his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, with gratitude. And I'm like, oh my God, the whole world looks at Jared Kushner as a shark. He's certainly not qualified to do any of the things that Trump trusts him with, but Trump trusts him. So he's very clannish in that way. So Europe, they have to find their own way, and it's going to be very difficult for them because Trump has sensed weakness there accurately, and he is willing to exploit that weakness for whatever he wants to do. And that will be, it's not just, I'm going to lay a tariff on you and you can't do anything about it. I'm going to lay an army on you and you can't do anything about it. It's not just that. It's in every way. Our pharmaceutical prices are high, so we're going to tax yours. We're going to force you to raise your prices on European citizens. That is a kind of exploitation that Trump's very good at doing. But that harms Europe's ability to find its feet. And I say Europe as a whole. I really mean the countries of Europe. I think the concept of the EU is, it was always a waste of money. It was always a bureaucratic, non-representative entity. And it's just gone down its predictable path of waste. And the people hold the EU in contempt. They rightfully see it as elite rulership over their country that they can't control by elections, because there are no elections, really, for all intents and purposes. So the EU is hated, and it's going to fall just like NATO. I think NATO clearly is in a free fall. It's in a slow motion free fall. That's what NATO is. And if Trump puts all of his resources in this Golden Dome, including in Greenland, northern Canada, Alaska, that's a huge investment. Do you think he's going to put that in NATO? He's going to say, I am spending on NATO, guys. This is NATO spending. I'm just doing it in my hemisphere. And they will so it's a drying up. It's, if I was a European, I would definitely be trying to envision a different future, one that they haven't envisioned for 70, 80 years. Things are changing. And if they're smart, they see it. And I think some of them do see it. But we don't know what the face of new political leadership in Europe will be. We don't know. We have to see what it will be. We know it'll be populist, but there are populists that love the welfare state, right? I mean, a populist does not mean an ideal small government Republican or small R Republican. A populist can be anybody. People get very angry. They're starving. A populist is the guy that feeds them. So We've seen this happen. It's not pretty.
Yeah, and especially when you look at the current state of NATO, and exactly as you're noting there, these Europeans have been conditioned to think that Russia is the bad guy, that Russia is coming after them. And then they wake up and they look around and they go, wait a second. Oh, the US is, leading us to the slaughter, essentially. Meanwhile, the US is over here, and not only is it, pursuing the destruction of NATO, but also at the same time, it's pursuing all of these endless wars while Trump is claiming he needs the Nobel Peace Prize. They're on the verge of bombing Iran. They just kidnapped the sitting president of Venezuela. I mean, how do you see the current state of US foreign policy and this just destructive, chaotic nature that it is pursuing all around the world, almost as a way to say, oh, we can't build like China, we can't do like Russia. Okay, well, we're just going to blow everything up then.
I mean, it's kind of frenetic what Trump is doing. And I think also we kind of, it's Trump's second term. He's pushing 80 years old. He'll be 82 or 3 when he is finished with it. This is his capstone in his mind. He's not well informed. He has what he brings to the table, which is his life. And we know what he believes, because it's been very obvious what he believes. But he's not able to really be informed with new information. He's not particularly creative. He is tactical. He's trying to accomplish a great deal in a small amount of time. So I see it as frenetic, and also kind of like a solar flare. These explosions on the surface of the sun. It's a huge nuclear explosion is the sun, basically. But occasionally you see these solar flares and bursts and whatever. And they burn themselves out necessarily. That's just part of the slow decline of the sun, it's this burning out. And I see a lot of what Trump is doing as a kind of a burning out. He's running on vapor, really, in many ways. And certainly I see the value of the dollar as vaporous. If anybody, it's probably not going to be Europe, but, Japan and China, other buyers of U.S. treasuries have severely cut back on their purchase of our debt. When that happens, we buy our own debt, and we whip up money out of vapor. We don't even print the dollars. We just make them, we create it. It's modern monetary theory. Trump is a modern monetary theorist. He may not know that he is, but he certainly fits the description. So he's trying to make things happen very rapidly with very little concrete resources, except for threat of war, threat of nuclear annihilation. I assume he doesn't say he wants to drop a nuclear bomb, but he doesn't say he doesn't either. So we have that. And he refuses to enter into treaties on nuclear weapons. That certainly communicates to the world that, he's considering, that is an active source of power we wield over the world. He wants people to use the dollar, but he's doing nothing to make the dollar more attractive, because his spending at the federal level, we always like to blame the Congress for spending, because no congressman wants to deprive their district of any potential good deal that Washington might be able to give them. But Trump himself, as president, is front loading the debt. I mean, he's already talked about increasing the Pentagon by a full 50%, $1.5 trillion for the Pentagon, and there's no concrete details as to what they'll spend it on. He just wants to throw money at it. So this is he's doing things which make our country weaker, even as he presents them as making us stronger. It's a solar flare. It's burning itself out. I'm very concerned about that, because it won't take too many more countries around the world, and groups and blocs around the world, who realize the risk of dealing with the United States in any way, diplomatically, financially, militarily, is a high risk. It's a risk you may not want to take anymore. He threw NATO under the bus. He's thrown the EU under the bus. He is printing money like a crazy man in this country to fund his dreams and visions. And he badmouths everybody, and he tariffs everybody, which is a very destabilizing tool. Like every morning, did Trump make a new tariff? Did Trump change a tariff that he made yesterday? We don't know. We have to wait and see. And that kind of global uncertainty, economic uncertainty, and military uncertainty drives everybody else away from us, not towards us. So whether Trump is doing this on purpose, I don't think so. but I think he really doesn't understand the impact. And the people advising him do understand the impact, and they are seeking to benefit themselves. Certainly, Israel thrives on chaos. Their whole region is chaotic because of Israel's policies. It's just part of Israel's defense policy, is to divide, and not really conquer, but just divide and destroy, all around us, so that we'll be safe if we do that. It's a very flawed concept, but that's how they run their part of the world. They are advising Trump, he must do the same. Divide and own, expand, control, defend. Where's the democracy? Where's the republicanism? Where's the rule of law? Where is real entrepreneurial productivity? Where is the idea of a government that doesn't take 50% of everybody's money? That's what, the United States says, oh, we're a low tax country. Really? Have you checked on that recently? Because we're really not. We are on par with all of Europe, which we consider high tax, environments, but we have the same thing, except unless you are connected to government, and unless you are the ultra rich, or whatever. There's a small number of people that have an ability to avoid taxes, but the actual working class cannot avoid them. And I don't know, it's crazy. You remember how Trump wanted to make taxes on tips, eliminate those. And to some extent he did it. But when Congress put it together, it was very narrow how they would exempt them, made it more complicated than it needed to be. That's how it is. Our country is not going to reduce taxes on anybody. And if not even the waiters and waitresses and delivery people who are at the very bottom of our income ladder. These people are technically at the welfare level. They're not on welfare, but they could be. They should be, perhaps, if we were fair about it. But we're not fair about it. And those people's taxes are going to be continued. And the wealthy, of course, have their ways of avoiding it, which they do everywhere around the world. I mean, it's not a U.S. problem specifically. But anyway, I don't think Trump knows what he's getting into. And I think he is, I don't think he's firing blanks. But technically, everything he has is a blank. It's all a facade. It's all a Potemkin village that he's building for the whole world to see. And, people see through that. And the rest of the world sees through it quicker than Americans do, I think. So, tighten your seatbelt for 2026. Trying to put some money under the mattress, learn a new skill, become familiar with the idea of having 3 or 4 jobs that you sustain your family with. That's the future of America. Unfortunately, this in MAGA, right in the middle of it, right? Because MAGA bought the storyline. And I have to admit, I thought, oh my gosh, some of the stuff he's saying, putting America first, what a radical concept. I'd love to see American tax dollars stay at home, but he hasn't done that. So it's very interesting. At least he's not hiding it from us. He talks a lot. Trump talks a lot. Just listen to him.
Yeah, he seems to be. I know that's one thing when you look at him and you go, okay, he's very out and making sure that everything is front and center and really exposing what his administration is doing, which is interesting to watch. The last thing I wanted to get into is kind of Russia and China's response to all of this, because I know that here this week, especially in the mainstream media, they're looking at all of the drama surrounding Greenland and they're going, wait a second, this is great for Russia because the US can focus over here on Greenland, Europe can focus over here on Greenland, and Russia can really focus on Ukraine, even as Trump is, of course, claiming that, oh, the US has to take over Greenland because otherwise Russia's going to come and take it, or China is. How do you view the position that Russia and China are in kind of handling this madman that is not just Trump, but the entire US establishment, making it clear that they have no regard for international law or even for themselves and their country?
We know, okay, both the leaders of China and Russia have been there for quite a while, right? 20 years. They are seasoned political leaders. They understand a great deal. Both of them understand history in ways that Trump will never understand. So they're very well qualified to read Donald Trump and to understand the impacts on our country and on their country of what Trump may or may not be doing, which isn't always clear what he is doing. I think it is clear he's taking Greenland and he wants to put investment in Greenland and he wants to say he owns it. I think that's clear. But what are the ramifications of that? I think for Russia, they're a little bit different because the Arctic is Russian territory. Russia has fantastic nuclear powered icebreakers, which they've been building for some time, that no other country on the world has, mainly because no other country in the world really would need to build those, right? I mean, Russia has they kind of dominate Arctic technology in every way, including icebreakers and things like that. So I think Russia sees a possibility of working with the United States if it wants to develop the Arctic, because the only country knows how to develop the Arctic is the Russians. Okay, they are the leaders in that, and this is non-war related. I mean, they have some advantages war related, military, but in terms of development, Russia leads the way. So this is advantageous for Russia. For China, I'm not sure how they view it, but China, of course, is a much larger place, much larger economy than Russia. I think, isn't it number 2 in the world? We're number 1. I mean, we're very close, and it could change very easily. China's trying to develop its own consumer base. China's taking care of itself. China has its own financial problems. They print a lot of yuan, and they do the same thing we do with vapor money. So they have to straighten things out. But China understands what China first means, right? China understands. You don't see China wasting a lot of money overseas if they're not getting back a return. Even their investment in Africa and South America, it is, we are going to invest, and we're going to do it not in this big, massive way like a Trump would like to do it, but we're going to do it in a way that makes financial sense for us and for you, the host country. Their emphasis on diplomacy and their development of a diplomatic corps in China. Oh my God! Imagine how powerful the United States would be if we had a diplomatic corps that knew what they were doing and that were, all on board with the same storyline and actually cared about helping and making long-term relationships. Well, see, China does that. So China will continue to do that. China has already dropped off on its purchase of our debt. China is concentrating its not just commodity wealth and commodity arrangements with exporters, of oil like Russia and whatnot, but they're also gold and silver, hard commodity, things that can be used as money, not just things that can back up your money, natural resources. And China is doing that. They have been doing that. India is doing that. Russia is doing that. So everybody around the world that can is preparing for the collapse of the dollar. And meanwhile, Trump is trying to save the dollar with helicopter money, and threatening other people with tariffs, assuming that everyone must deal with the United States. But we have our own demographic problems, right? We have our own productivity problems. We have our own educational problems in this country. We're not the country we were 50 years ago. We're not we say, oh, we have great innovation. We have great innovation. Have they looked at DeepSeek in AI? China's DeepSeek is on a next level from what the Americans have done, and taxpayers have put money into American artificial intelligence. Is that really a good idea? Is that really investing in America when we subsidize, last year's technology and then deprive Americans of the next generation technology, which is being developed outside of America? So we got big problems. Trump, I don't know what he's able to take in. Vance being younger, that's his selling point, only that he's younger. And we could get an opposing party president or anybody else who is younger. But we need somebody that really gets what globalism looks like. Not that it's Davos and all the elites telling us we will own nothing and be happy. That's one thing. That's one kind of elitism and globalism. But really, global trade, global innovation, competition globally. We need people in Washington who understand that, not just how they can make a dollar or a dime off of it, but how we can emulate what works, because we are no longer emulating what works. And if you think the other countries are looking at America right now under Trump and saying, oh, we should do more of that. Yeah, we should be more like the Americans. They are not saying that. They are saying, keep a wide berth. Be very cautious in your dealings with this president. He lies. He goes back on his word repeatedly. He listens to a very narrow group of people who are driven by their own interests. That's how they see us. I don't know. Trump can make all the speeches he wants, and all he seems to do is confirm what many of the wisest leaders around the world have already concluded, that America needs to be watched. We need to be very careful with America. We need to be prepared for really a collapse of the American dollar, a collapse of American society, a collapse of the American government. We need to be ready for World War III. These are all things that Trump has caused everybody else on the planet to really focus in on. And I don't think that was his intent at all. that's the result.
Yeah, as you see us in this place where, I mean, the US empire is in decline and it's getting desperate, and that means nothing good for the entire world, truly. I know that there is certainly a lot at stake here all around, and I really appreciate you taking the time to join me today to break down all of the latest here. Retired US Air Force Lieutenant Colonel and Professor Karen Kwiatkowski, thank you so much for your time and insight.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to come on your show.
If anything in this video resonated with you, be sure to like it, share it with your friends, leave a comment. And as always, don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to keep up with all of my work, make sure that you're subscribed to my page on Substack. That's rachelblevins.substack.com. That's where you'll find ad-free videos and new weekly episodes of my exclusive series for paid subscribers called Sanctioned. You can also check out Sanctioned over on my page on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Rachel Blevins. As always, thank you all so much for all of your support, and I'll see you next time.